A boggart is a supernatural being from English folklore. The dialectologist Elizabeth Wright described the boggart as a generic name for an apparition, while folklorist Simon Young defines it as any ambivalent or evil solitary supernatural spirit. Halifax folklorist Kai Roberts states that the boggart might have been used to refer to anything from a hilltop hobgoblin to a household fairy, from a headless apparition to a prototypical poltergeist. As these wide definitions suggest, boggarts are to be found both within and out of doors as a household spirit or malevolent, geographically defined spirit inhabiting fields or other topographical features. The 1867 book Lancashire Folklore by Harland and Wilkinson makes a distinction between house boggarts and other types. Typical descriptions show boggarts to be malevolent. It is said that the boggart crawls into people's beds at night and puts a clammy hand on their faces. Sometimes he strips the bedsheets off them. The household boggart may follow a family wherever they flee. One Lancashire source reports the belief that a boggart could never be named. If the boggart was given a name, it could neither be reasoned with nor persuaded, but would become uncontrollable and destructive. In northwestern dialects, the word boggart was used in a number of sentences. In Lancashire, a skittish or runaway horse was said to have took boggarts, that is, been frightened by a usually invisible boggart. The recorded folklore of boggarts is remarkably varied as to their appearance and size. Many are described as relatively human-like in form, although usually uncouth, very ugly, and often with bestial attributes. T. Sternberg's 1851 book Dialect and Folklore of Northamptonshire describes a certain boggart as a squat, hairy man, strong as a 6-year-old horse, and with arms almost as long as tackle poles. Other accounts describe boggarts as having more completely beast-like forms. The boggart of Longer Heed from Yorkshire was said to be a fearsome creature the size of a calf, with long shaggy hair and eyes like saucers. It trailed a long chain after itself which made a noise like the baying of hounds. The boggart of Hackensall Hall in Lancashire had the appearance of a huge horse. At least one Lancashire boggart was said to sometimes take the forms of various animals, or indeed more fearful creatures. The boggarts of Lancashire were said to have a leader or master called Aud Hob, who had the form of a satyr or archetypal devil, horns, cloven hooves, and a tail. The name of at least one Lancashire boggart was recorded, Nutnan, who flitted with a shrill scream among hazel bushes in Moston near Manchester. In Yorkshire, boggarts also inhabit outdoor locations. One is said to haunt Cave Ha, a limestone cavern in Giggleswick near Settle. A piece of folklore concerning a Lancashire boggart was first published in 1861. The author, Edwin Waugh, had a conversation with an elderly couple one evening about their local boggart. They maintained that the boggart was buried at a nearby bend in the river under an ash tree, along with a cockerel with a stake driven through it. Despite being buried, the boggart was still able to create trouble. A farmer's wife, the old couple claimed, just 2 weeks earlier had heard doors banging in her farmhouse at night, then loud laughter. She looked out to see 3 candles casting blue light and a creature with red burning eyes leaping about. The following morning, many marks of cloven hooves were seen outside the house. The couple claimed that the boggart had unhitched their own horse and overturned their cart on occasion. "Never name it," the old woman repeated, and her husband stated that he would never dig near its grave. In one old tale said to originate from the village of Mumby in the Lincolnshire countryside, the boggart is described as being rather squat, hairy, and smelly. In the story, a farmer offers a deal to a boggart inhabiting his land. The boggart may choose either part of the crop that grows above the ground or the part below it. When the boggart chooses the part below the ground, the farmer plants barley. At harvest time, the boggart is left with only stubble. The boggart then demands the part above ground instead, so the farmer plants potatoes. Once again, left with nothing to show for his efforts, the enraged boggart leaves the area. An alternative telling includes a third episode where the farmer and the boggart are to harvest the crop from either side of the field, each getting what he harvests. However, the farmer plants iron rods in the boggart's half before reaping, blunting his side and allowing the farmer to harvest almost the entire field. The story is identical to the European fable The Farmer and the Devil cited in many 17th century French works. A variety of geographic locations and architectural landmarks have been named for the boggart. Most famously, there is a large municipal park called Boggart Hall Clough, which is bordered by Moston and Blackley in Manchester. Clough is a northern dialect for a steep-sided, wooded valley. A large part of Boggart Hole Clough is made up of these valleys and is said to have been inhabited by Boggarts. The Clough is the setting for many Boggart stories, including one of how a local farmer, George Cheetham, and his family were forced to leave their home due to the torment inflicted by a boggart. However, as they were taking their possessions away in a cart, the voice of the boggart was heard issuing from a milk churn on the cart. Unable to escape the boggart, they returned to their farm. There is a Boggart Stones on Saddleworth Moor, where the Moor's murderers, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, bury the bodies of Pauline Reid and Leslie Ann Downey, the children they had abducted in 1963 and 1964. The children's bodies were buried just below the location and in sight of Boggart Stones. There is a Boggart Bridge in Burnley, Lancashire. Tradition says that whatever crosses the bridge must give a living thing to the boggart or forfeit his or her soul. Boggarts' roaring holes are a group of potholes on the moors of Newby Moss near Clapham in the Yorkshire Dales. Legend has it these potholes are the dwelling place of grotesque flesh-eating boggarts whose angry growls have allegedly been heard reverberating from the depths of the dark caverns beneath. In the Seacroft area of Leeds in West Yorkshire, there is a council estate named Boggart Hill. Boggart Hill Drive, Boggart Hill Gardens and Boggart Hill were all given the name of the estate area. On Puck, a moon of Uranus, there is a crater named Boggle in deference to the system of nomenclature of the satellite, whose features are all named after various mischievous spirits. In 2019, folklorist Simon Young launched a survey to test modern understandings of the word boggart in England, and particularly Lancashire, Cheshire, Derbyshire and Yorkshire. Young collected 1,100 accounts, including about 400 negatives, from the middle-aged and elderly saying that they had never heard of boggarts while growing up. The census was subsequently released freely online by University of Exeter Press as an open access PDF. The connection between the word boggart and bog depends on folk etymology. There is no obvious association in many earlier sources between boggarts and the word bog, but this is frequent in post-war accounts. However, in Lincolnshire, the intimate connection of boggarts with marshland is attested in a 19th century account. In this account, the descriptive phrase swamp boggles is also employed. In 1882, the weekly journal All the Year Round, then edited by Charles Dickens Jr., describes a marsh-dwelling boggart who milked farmers' cows at night. When a person got lost in a marsh and was never seen again, the people were sure that a boggart had caught the poor unfortunate and devoured him.
If you like that, then check out our Patreon, where for just $5 a month you get access to exclusive shows like Real Monsters and Playing with Bones with Amy Rose, along with early access to all our minisodes and ad-free access to the Weekend Update and It's Alive! Not convinced yet? Well, head on over now and have 7 days on us. That's a 7-day free trial for all new members. That's It's Alive Pod on Patreon. It's Alive, all the guts and go with none of the guilt. See you on Wednesdays, unless you're on Patreon when you get us all week long.